Join me today as we continue on to part 4 of the Halloween franchise retrospective. In this episode, we will explore the two Rob Zombie entries. Welcome back. To those of you who have been here before, welcome to those of you who are new to the channel. This is the Geek Cabal channel. I'm Bob, and today we're going to be talking about Halloween 1 and 2 by Rob Zombie in part 4 of our Halloween retrospective. If you haven't seen them, you should definitely check out parts 1 through 3. However, you could get a complete picture here because these two movies are self-contained and don't really tie back into the others. It's up to you. I personally, I'd prefer you to watch the other three, and the fifth one that's going to be recorded shortly after this one, which will cover the more recent movies. The third one, I guess, that's just known as Halloween, and then Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. But that'll be in part 5, which I have yet to record. So, anyway, have our lovely prop supplied by Jim here of our not quite Laserdisc movie, some other format of Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. The one that everyone definitely has a love or hate relationship with. I think it's weird and wacky and I love it, but, that's just me. Also, for those of you who have Shudder and know who Joe Bob Briggs is, on The Last Drive-In, his co-host, Darcy the Mail Girl, is a huge fan of this movie too. Although I think it's mainly due to Tom Atkins being in it. She's a big Tom Atkins fan, but I don't know. Not going to speculate. Although I suppose I just did. I don't know. So anyway, on to what we're going to talk about. If you haven't seen the others, there will definitely be spoilers as to what happens in these movies, and we're going to talk a little bit about their actual plots, who's in them, where they go with the rest of the franchise, and so anyway. Now, as I've said in the other movies, the Halloween franchise kind of meanders and branches and goes all over the place. There are a total of 13 films in the franchise. However, certain parts of it just do not go with the rest of them. One of them being Halloween 3. Plot-wise, doesn't have anything to do with the other movies. Within this movie, Halloween is just a movie in the background. So, like, Michael Myers is not a real person in this movie. Like in the others, we assume he's a real person. Hopefully, I'm making that clear what I mean by that. Whereas the others, you can you can follow a storyline from 1 and 2, or 1, 2, 4, 5, and 6, or 1, 2, 7, and 8, or 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, if you make some assumptions about Laurie and her parenting ability. Or you can go 1, some vague version of 2 probably happening, and then the new Halloween, Halloween Kills, and Halloween Ends. Or the 2 we're going to talk about, the Rob Zombie portion of the franchise, which are 2 films that just don't connect to the others. So the first one is just known as Halloween, and the other one's just known as Halloween 2. So not to be confusing or anything. So, Halloween. In terms of story structure, essentially it's about 45 minutes of a backstory for Michael Myers, and then a warp speed remake of the first movie. I think, honestly, Rob Zombie began thinking of this a while before he made the movie. Because I know there was a special about scary movies that came out one time. He was in it, and he specifically was talking about Michael Myers, and specifically so what made him go off? I think his speculation was, well, he just had too much Halloween candy and decided to kill his sister. That's not what happened, but so he took the opportunity in his movie to show the setup. And the setup is essentially that Michael Myers is a psychopath, and always has been. If anything, he didn't get enough Halloween candy. Because it comes Halloween night, and by this point, he's already either crippled or killed another kid. Because there was a kid picking on him at school, and he waited for him in the woods, bashed him in the back with a stick a few times to paralyze him, and then I'm pretty sure did him in. Then he goes home. His sister is supposed to take him out trick or treating, and I think she did a little bit. No, she didn't at all. And he went out alone, got some candy, and then came back home. And yeah, it's just like a switch flipped, and his adopted dad, he ends up like passing out drunk in the chair. So he tapes him to the chair and then slits his throat, and then puts on the mask, the iconic mask for the series that his sister's boyfriend, brought with him, and goes in and kills his sister, and also killed the boyfriend beforehand. I think he got him with a baseball bat, if I remember right. And then just sits outside the house and waits for his mom to come home, and then the police show up, and then we see a little bit of Dr. Loomis trying to get through to him. He stabs a woman at the hospital, like right in the neck. I don't remember if he killed her or not. Then Dr. Loomis eventually had to break the news that his mom killed herself. And Michael just becomes more and more detached. And then we get to the present where Dr. Loomis has completely given up, and Michael is now a towering giant, breaks free, and goes on a killing spree. So, that's the gist of the plot. So, like I said, the big change is the beginning of the movie. I think it's about 45 minutes of the movie, is the backstory. And then just blazing through a remake of the first movie. Uh, this one is definitely far more violent than the original. And also, there were a lot of people seem to criticize both the Rob Zombie movies, and I'm not entirely certain what the exact criticism is, because it's just a general like, oh yeah, those two we don't talk about. And I personally thought they were fine. The second one gets a little weird, but they're fine for what they are. They're slasher movies, not high art here. Um, I think one of the complaints is the gratuitous level of the violence, but it's not like the main franchise didn't eventually get there too. So I don't know. It's hard to say what people's issues with it were. Maybe it's just the general concept of the fact it's a remake, more or less, of the first one. The second one charts its own territory. Uh, but the first one, I mean, half of it is a remake of the first movie. So it's kind of hard to not notice that. But yeah, like I said, overall, I thought it was decent. Maybe that's just me, though. But one major difference, unlike the original, where Donald Pleasance is the headlining star, and then that's Jamie Lee Curtis's first movie. She goes on to become a star, but at the time she wasn't a star. Other than that, I mean, I'm sure some of those actors are in other things, but I don't know who they are. I'm not saying they're unknowns, but they were definitely unknown to me at the time. So this the Rob Zombie version, radically different on that front. So I've got the IMDb page here because I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. So Laurie is played by Scout Taylor Compton. Now I haven't seen her in anything else that I know of, so that's that. But then Dr. Loomis is Malcolm McDowell, who's in all kinds of things. Michael Myers, the adult Michael Myers, is played by Tyler Mane, so he's gigantic, and that's why. Sheriff Beckett is, uh, Brackett, is played by Brad Dourif. For those of you who don't recognize the name offhand, oh, by the way, Tyler Mane is a wrestler, so he's big. Brad Dourif, he's in a number of things. He's in all kinds of horror movies, although his major headlining role on that front is he's the voice of Chucky from the Child's Play movies, and also plays the guy whose name I forget, who transfers his soul into the doll at the very beginning of the first Chucky movie, Child's Play movies. But also on the non-horror front, he played Grima Wormtongue in the second and third Lord of the Rings movies. Well, second Lord of the Rings movie, deleted scene in the third Lord of the Rings movie. So, but yeah, he's been in all kinds of things. He's a very accomplished actor. And then Michael Myers' mom is played by Sherry Moon Zombie, who's Rob Zombie's wife. She's primarily in other movies Rob Zombie has made, as far as like things you might have seen. I don't recall offhand if she's also in adult films or not. I believe she is, but I don't remember offhand. His stepdad is William Forsythe, who's in numerous things. Udo Kier is in the movie. So is Clint Howard, Danny Trejo, Bill Moseley, Leslie Eastbrook, and then we got a few other people here that Rob Zombie seems to include in a lot of his movies. Sorry, I should have gone for the more deluxe page here so I could see them all. They're at the bottom of the page. Ken Foree, who is also in the sequel to House of a Thousand Corpses that Rob Zombie made, and his main role that people know him for is in Dawn of the Dead. He's the I can't think of his name in the movie, but he's the black police officer that goes with the group in the helicopter and escapes and makes it to the shopping mall and everything. And he's been in several other things, but that's one of his big like headlining roles that people know him for. He is also in the Dawn of the Dead remake as a blink and you'll miss it scene in the background. Well, not blink and you'll miss it. It's like 2 minutes, but anyway. And then Sid Haig, who is Captain Spaulding in The House of a Thousand Corpses in its sequel, and I believe the third one, which I never got around to watching it, so I couldn't tell you for sure. Bill Moseley, who I mentioned earlier, is also in those films. He is also in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, where he plays Chop Top. Yeah, I'll have to talk about that movie someday. And yeah, that's most of the others. And then there's Danielle Harris, who, if you've seen the other films that I've talked about, you'll remember that name. She plays Laurie Strode's daughter in Halloween 4 and 5. Now here she plays the sheriff's daughter, who in the original version of the movie gets killed in the first movie. However, she survives the first movie here, but she is like cut all to shit by Michael Myers. Annie is who she plays, and yeah, but she survives. So that's one minor thing that's different. Uh, yeah, there's definitely a much higher body count as the original Halloween. There's only 4, maybe 5 people that die in that movie. Not counting Michael's sister at the very beginning. I guess that would be 5. So, and you only see 4 of the deaths. One happens off screen. You just see the body later on. That's the mechanic where Michael steals the coveralls and everything for his outfit. Or tow truck driver, sorry. Could be a mechanic too. I don't know. But anyway, so this has a much more recognized cast in this one. A lot of horror movie folks that have been in other movies. A lot of folks that Rob Zombie likes to use in his movies. Then of course the two headliners are Malcolm McDowell because he plays Dr. Loomis, and Brad Dourif because he plays the sheriff. And the two of them also show up in part 2, along with again Tyler Mane as Michael, Scout Taylor Compton as Laurie again, and Danielle Harris as Annie. Like I said, she does survive. So, yeah, the first one is, like I said, there's the part where they kind of explain everything, which is basically that Michael was already probably a socio or psychopath, and then just had a thoroughly broken home. His mom is a stripper. The father figure is not his actual dad, and he is only there to be with the mom. Doesn't care about either of the kids. Bullies Michael, and Michael's bullied at school. has clear rage issues, and then finally lashes out and kills several people. Then waits and waits and waits and comes home and kills a whole lot more of them. You know, that's what happens in these movies. Uh, now, here, unlike in the original, where Michael was stronger but not quite super strong until like later in the series, this one just starts off with no, Michael Myers is an unstoppable juggernaut. Tyler Mane is very tall, very large, and you really see that in the moment where they try to transfer him as a prisoner, and he's like a foot taller than everybody else there, and like as wide as one and a half, like kind of broad-shouldered individuals. So he easily just murders all of them, and that's where a lot of our cameo characters all die right there. Then we have Danny Trejo is like an orderly there at the hospital, and he's been nice to Michael all this time. For his trouble, Michael half drowns him, then smashes his head in with a TV and kills him. So, as these movies will explain, if you watch the other videos, it does not pay to try to be nice to Michael Myers. That will not stop him from killing you. He's just a killing machine. Then Ken Foree gets to be the unfortunate guy in the truck stop that Michael decides to kill him and take his outfit. Got a thing for, the One Piece overall kind of deal. And yeah, there's just some other randos that he kills along the way and trying to get to his sister, Lori. And like the original, I'm pretty sure we don't know that Lori is his sister until the second movie. Um, so, yeah, and it ends the same way. Dr. Loomis shoots him and you don't see his body, and presumably he's up and at him again. So the next movie takes place sometime later. I don't know if it's a year later or like a couple years later. Lori is living with the sheriff because her adopted family was murdered, I believe, in the first one. Oh, the second movie does pay homage to the original second movie. It starts off in a hospital. Michael's coming through and killing people. And so we get kind of like a really fast remake of parts of the second movie. And then Lori wakes up, it was all a nightmare. In reality, now she's living with the sheriff. Annie is still alive, but has definitely taken a beating and been cut up. And yeah, so now she's living with them. And Michael hadn't been seen in a while. She's being very reckless. Having survived death definitely did something to her psyche. So early on, she and some of her friends go to I think it was in a barn, a party somewhere. They're all dressed like assorted characters from the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And yeah, so they go there, and then Michael Myers shows back up. His mask is kind of damaged. You can see he's clearly got a beard underneath there because, well, he probably doesn't shave. He just kind of like has been wandering around like cornfields and wooded areas for a while. And yeah, shows back up and start to see visions of his mom, like all dressed in white but looking dead, and him as a kid. Some weird stuff starts happening in this movie. He goes to the strip club, kills the people there that employed his mom. Then, yeah, starts murdering his way through some of Laurie's friends to get to her again. Finishes the job on Annie this time. She is still played by Danielle Harris in this one. And the sheriff's still Brad Dourif, and, Malcolm McDowell's still Dr. Loomis. His credibility has hit rock bottom because everyone's like, hey, so you were this guy's psychiatrist for a while, and then you tried to shoot him. Like, make that make sense to us. And he really can't. So now he comes and tries to help the situation eventually. And everyone's kind of questioning if he's just there for more book sales or if he's actually wanting to help. And I don't remember what the final verdict on that was. I think he was actually trying to help, but was also mindful of maybe this will help some book sales. And yeah, the end of the movie ends with like a big police standoff. It ends with Lori like losing her mind. She begins to see like Sherry Moon Zombie's character and like younger Michael Myers and a unicorn, if I recall correctly. Maybe it's just a white horse, but I think it was a unicorn. So she has clearly like flipped her lid. So the movie ends with her just being psychotic also, and probably going to start killing people at some point down the road. Not what you would call a happy ending. I think Rob Zombie was angling for a part three that just never really happened. So yeah, I mean the second one, like the first one, is definitely a bloodbath. Definitely a more graphic violence, not just the quantity but also the quality, such as it is. So yeah, it's another Halloween movie. It's the main standout here is like the weird business with seeing the visions of the mom and the younger Michael, and trying to take things in a different path than the original Halloween 2, but also that like first 10 minutes or so, the homage to the original Halloween 2. Then yeah, I mean, I would have I liked the two. I would have gone to seen it. I would have gone to watch a third one if Rob Zombie would have made it. I'd have definitely gone to watch it if it would have remade Season of the Witch. Like that would have been sign me up. I'd buy the tickets 8 months in advance if I had to, but probably wouldn't have to. But I would have anyway. Yeah, that could have been something special right there, but didn't happen. Might one day down the road. You never know, but I doubt it. But yeah, so some other comments. Rob Zombie's movies, some of them kind of have a look to them. Like House of a Thousand Corpses kind of has a look to it for most of the movie. And the two Halloween movies definitely do. Because each of these movies are filmed so far apart, you can see like differences in probably both camera quality, film quality. In this case, these two are probably both on digital, not actual film, given the years they were made. And so you can tell the movies don't look like they're all part of the same series. Okay. Whereas if you look at, say, well, the Star Trek movies did the retrospective on. Now, yeah, you can see subtle changes as you go along, and like film quality wise, if you compare like 2 and 6, you can definitely see some differences. But they were filmed over a decade apart. Whereas here, like if you look at 1 and 2, you can tell they were filmed almost back to back. I mean, you could literally take the two movies, edit them together into one movie, and you would not be able to tell based on the picture quality and the general aesthetics when you switched over into the second movie. You could do something similar with 4 and 5. You see a little bit of a difference in 6, but then you get to 7 and 8, where they look very similar, and then the current three all look very similar, and the two Rob Zombie movies all look very similar, but they all look different from each other. So, it's just one of those things due to advancing filming technology and techniques, and directors moving forward with it. I think Tarantino is one of the only holdouts that likes to shoot things on film, and Christopher Nolan shot certain parts of Oppenheimer specifically for IMAX film cameras, and they actually had a hard time like finding people that still knew how to operate them because they fired them all once they went to digital because they didn't need a guy in the booth to actually change the film rolls and everything. So it was hard for them to find new people or the old people that still knew how to do it. So I don't think that was the case here with Rob Zombie. I don't think he's I don't want to say a film snob, but I don't think he's one of those like absolutists. It's like, no, it's got to be film. Damn it! I think these were shot on digital. The soundtrack is definitely different. In the first one and the second one, you do have the elements of the theme song, but you also have several like known songs in the first one for sure, and I believe also the second one. Whereas like in the original Halloween, I think the only like actual song you'd ever really hear on the radio was "Don't Fear the Reaper" by the Blue Oyster Cult. That's playing at one point in Annie's car, and then a little bit later on, there's another song in Annie's car, and I don't remember what that song is off the top of my head. I think that's basically it. And likewise with future movies, like there might be a song here or there, but it's usually like a song like in the background in the movie itself, not just a soundtrack music, except for the main theme and other like orchestral type music. Whereas here, you have a number of actual songs on the soundtrack. And yeah, like the two just off the top of my head is I know "Love Hurts" is on there, which that's right whenever Michael realizes he's not going trick or treating as a kid, and somewhere in that song is where he decides time to murder everybody. So yes, love did indeed hurt there. And the other one is Tom Sawyer, and that's playing whenever Ken Forey's character pulls into the truck wash, and Michael walks up and kills him in the bathroom. Shitty way to go. But yeah, that's most of what I've got to say on these movies. Like I said a couple times now, like I thought they were decent. You know, I don't think they're great. Still, the first one's still my favorite of the whole franchise. But I do also like the second one quite a bit. And 4, 5, and 6 have their moments. 3 is wacky insanity, but I love it. And then, you know, the others are of varying quality. I do like the 3 recent ones. Uh, but yeah, the Rob Zombie ones, the probably middle of the pack if I were to rank all of them. But they're definitely watchable if you like the others. So I personally don't know what the huge problem with them is. You know, I'll read up on it sometime and maybe I'll discuss it in one of the podcast episodes or something. But anyway, that is most of what I have to say about the two Rob Zombie Halloween movies. I hope you enjoyed all this. Always appreciate the likes, shares, subscribes, all that fun stuff. If you haven't seen the other 3 videos in the series, check them out. Probably link to the first one in the description. I'll put them all in the description. Um, and then keep an eye out for part 5. My goal is to have all of these out by Halloween, which I should be able to do. We'll see. But yeah, otherwise, just watch out for the boogeyman.